This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome back, everyone. It is time once again to look at some viewer work, but today's mail time is going to be a little bit different in that all of the people who sent zines in today were students of mine in various zine workshops last year. And if you're not familiar how this works, let me explain it. So last year I started doing workshops, and as part of my workshop initiative here, I wanted to experiment with doing things online. And one of the things that I do is this zine course. And the whole thing is how to make a photo zine. And I get asked that a lot when people watch these videos. How do I produce this? How do I do the layout? How do I get it printed? And I think it's something that's very interesting. It's been a lot of fun to teach. And all the work, as I mentioned today, are zines that were sent in that were done in classes that I taught last year. And I'm really excited about this. Everybody did some amazing stuff. So I'm a little bit biased because the way I do these is we do them online and they're done as a class for 3 of the 4 weeks. And that third week, we actually break into small groups. And that way I can look at people's work one-on-one and they can get feedback. We can discuss what they're trying to do. And they get their students' feedback also, their fellow students. So it's something that's really important. And it's something that I think you'll be able to tell by the results here. We have some really strong work that's been submitted. So without further ado, let me start off with Mike Riley. And Mike is a student from the UK. He sent me 2 zines, actually. This one we did in the zine workshop, and this is the second one he did on closed circuit TV, which is very quirky and very cool. But I want to talk about the one that he did in the zine workshop because I think it's really powerful. So what I'm going to read is actually the hand-printed intro here in the book, which reads, "Portrait taken. On the 20th of February, my sister and I drove a couple of 100 miles north to my father's house. He had not answered the phone or emails for a couple days. Sometime in the hours or days before we arrived, he had been sitting in his kitchen watching TV with a glass of whiskey. At some point, he decided to go for a nap, intending to come back and left his whiskey on the table. But he never came back. We found him in his bed. This is his reflection, captured before it fades, November 2024. So I'm going to be honest, it's actually hard to follow that up with any kind of critique, but I really love this mic. It came out exceptionally well. As you guys can see in here, and as his story alluded to, this was the process of finding his father in his house. His father had passed away. And what we have here, essentially, that I really love is this essentially a portrait of his dad. And one of the things that I've always found interesting about photography, and this is something that I talked about with Sam Abel a few years ago, is this whole idea of, can you have a portrait of somebody without having the person in the portrait? And that's something that Sam did a lot of with National Geographic when he did pieces on Tolstoy. He did them on Charlie Russell, various people who were major figures in things like literature or fine art. And I love the idea of being able to illustrate somebody or being able to have a portrait of somebody without having them there, actually. And that's exactly what Mike has done in this. Is really well done. I mean, I wish you guys could have been there to hear the small group session with him because he did talk us through this and some of the little details that he found. I mean, we even discussed like the whole desire that one has when they're in a moment like this, that we as photographers understand it's really actually hard to communicate to somebody else because why are we taking pictures? This is a situation where, I don't know, it just seems like maybe that's not the right thing to do, but I would actually argue it was the right thing to do. And this is such a great topic for a zine like this. I think it's a wonderful tribute to your dad, Mike. And just some of the little details in here, like finding the refrigerator that was left open, or even finding the glass of whiskey that was left. Just little things like that. And it's such a great story. The whole idea of when you see the exterior images of the house and the yard and the hedge. And I also want to note that Mike pretty much had this all put together, I think, at least conceptually in his head before we even started the class. So, I mean, a lot of the work that we did in there was just little tiny tweaks on just making sure the sequencing was right and facing images, things they had to say. And I love a lot of these exteriors. We have the tree with the apples on the ground. Anyway, outstanding work. A couple things I want to note about Mike. He's an excellent photographer. He actually was a professional photographer doing wedding work and such before COVID hit. And not only did he get sick, but because of COVID, lost a lot of his clients, closed his business. So today he only shoots personal work. And I think he's had a second lease on his photographic life, so to speak, because he's doing some really cool things. The other zine that he sent is just this kind of fun collection of closed circuit television, which obviously for those of you in the UK know this very well. Various cameras looking down at the viewer of the zine. Anyway, very well done. You need to check out Mike's work. He really is good. He's exceptional. I love this zine. I don't know if he's actually selling these or not, but I will link up to Mike's work below, as well as everybody else that I'm covering in here. But Mike, I'm really proud of you, man. This is awesome. I'm glad I was able to kind of witness this coming together and be a part of it. And it was great having you in the zine class. And man, I just want to see more. These are both excellent. So excellent job, my friend. All right, so next up is a zine called Signs of Life. This comes to us from John Park. John was a lot of fun to work with on here. John is an excellent photographer. And he's photographed for a long time. He had several projects that he brought in that we were looking at and trying to figure what was going to be strong enough to build a zine on, or what he felt comfortable with. And I really love that he chose Signs of Life. Signs of Life is definitely more conceptual, as you can see in these images. And John has a really interesting approach to his own work in that he kind of breaks that fourth wall. A lot of these are going to be images of various things, and in terms of subject matter, it doesn't look like necessarily that they connect, but they do connect thematically over this idea of Signs of Life. One of my favorite spreads in here, and I remember we were talking about this, but you have the football on the left and this tangled barbed wire on the right, and how these relate to each other. I think it's really interesting. It's very conceptual. It's really well done. The other thing that I really love about this, John, is the way you paste this and the way it came out in the end. There's a lot of images, especially when they come together as a spread, that make you think. One of my favorites is the Christ figure on the wall, and it was juxtaposed with the phone pole with all the wires coming out of it. I think that John's work kind of goes, as I said, the fourth wall idea, but it kind of goes beyond just the subject matter and comes into something else. And if you consider this whole thing of Signs of Life, I think when we were talking about key points in the zine where you have a really strong beginning and then you have kind of this flow as it goes along and how to pace this, the trash fire on the cover I think is outstanding. John, your typography is great too. I absolutely love it. And then when you get towards the end, this is such a quirky photo, but the television with Alien on in the background is one of my favorites. And then obviously one of the most powerful images in here was the one it ended on. John, you did a fantastic job on here. You guys need to check John out. I will link up not only to people's websites, but make sure you check out what they're doing on Instagram. I just follow John on Instagram, and he's doing some really cool things on there. John, you should be proud of this. This is absolutely fantastic, my friend. So I have to admit, one of the hardest things about this video was trying to figure out how to pace it, because I just love everything in here. A couple other things that I want to share with you is this little zine of abstracts, which is just outstanding. And then another one that I want to show is actually a photographer that I featured in a video previously, but he used his zine project and went outside the class and actually used that as a study for a book that he's put together, and I want to share that with you too. But real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor this week, who are the awesome folks over at Squarespace. How easy is it to build an amazing website in a matter of minutes? Squarespace has you covered. It's dead simple. Head over to Squarespace, hit get started. You can start by using Squarespace Blueprint AI and SEO tools, which will give you an impressive website in no time. Something unique because, you're not like other websites. Give your site a name. Next, you can build your homepage. We'll start with a few preset layouts just to get us going. Want to sell products like prints, books, maybe you make a zine? Well, you can feature those on your homepage. Create a few more sections if you want. Let's also give it a color palette. There's a whole bunch to choose from. Just get us started. We can change this all later. Next, let's select the typography choices. Welcome to your website. Everything is set up and it's all ready for you to customize. Squarespace is built on Fluid Engine, the next generation of website design. Select Edit, and Fluid Engine allows you to drag, place, and resize any element on the page. You can snap these to a grid, you can make them float on top of one another, you can freeform however you like. You can even preview and adjust how the site looks on either desktop or mobile. The layouts are independent. Of course, you'll want a portfolio for your work. Creating an image gallery is as easy as dropping a folder of images on your web browser. Once uploaded, you can drag to resort, customize the look, and Squarespace writes all of the code for you. Everything just works and it looks fabulous. Want to sell your own prints, books, or zines? Flexible payments allow you to make the checkout process absolutely seamless when you sell products or services. You can accept credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, you can offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. You should try Squarespace for yourself. It's absolutely free, no credit card required. Just go to squarespace.com/AOP, sign up for that free trial. If you decide Squarespace is right for you, I can save you an additional 10% on your order by using offer code AOP on checkout. That's right, the code is AOP. So stop procrastinating, go build your website today. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. All right, so next up is this little zine that I want to share with you. This comes to us from Balicki. This is called Look Down. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is that when we do the zine class is that I pretty much help students choose what the direction they want to do, the concept for their zine, and then we work on the layout and the spreads and then pacing and obviously spreads and pacing, things like that. And then the students After the class, we'll go have these printed. And Lou got an excellent print job on here, and I think this is outstanding. One of the things about Lou's work is, and this is obviously very conceptual, this is all pretty much from the similar camera angle of looking down, but essentially what we've got with this is a book of abstracts. Not only that, but I want to talk about this because it's something that I pointed out with Lou too, and I don't know how intentional he was at this when he took the photographs, but he certainly was intentional when he put together for the layout. But limiting the color selection. And what's interesting about these is there's predominant colors that you'll see on spreads that complement one another and they don't get too busy. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that you're shooting on concrete and you have colors that come into it. But it's something that's interesting that comes into play because I think it's intentional, at least on a subconscious level for Lou as a photographer. It's really quite nice. The images came out great in here. I absolutely love the pacing on this. Dealing with the abstract is not easy, and I usually am not a big fan of abstract photography in the sense that a lot of times it's being weird for the sake of being weird, but I don't get that from Lou's work at all. I view this as he's finding shapes, he's finding geometry, and he's finding this visual language in this abstraction. Anyway, Lou, this came out absolutely fantastic. The color is fabulous on here. The reproduction is really wonderful. And the one thing that I want to note is that Lou, when he was working on this, used Canva as his design platform, the free version. And I point that out because I just want to show you that you don't need expensive things to get really good results. It comes down to an idea and it comes down to execution and it comes down to a body of work that makes sense. And Lou has done this. Anyway, Lou, you should be very proud of this. And thank you for sharing the final result. It is awesome. I will link to Lou's work below, so make sure you check him out. All right, so next up is something that I'm really excited to share with you guys. So this is from Paul Tocatlian. You might remember Paul, I guess a couple months ago when I featured his zine, The Street is My Studio. Paul took the zine class a while back. This was what he produced in the end. And just to give you a recap here, The Street is My Studio was work that was done during COVID pandemic when Paul is normally, he does fashion work, is a studio photographer, and he actually did all of these outdoors because of the pandemic with his models. And I think he did an outstanding job on here. One of the things that we talked about, I remember specifically in the class, is that Paul had a body of work here that was a little less zine-like and really wanted to be a book. And that's exactly what Paul did, is he used this as a preliminary study for this. And I'm going to read you a little of his note. This is a full-on book, and it is fabulous. Anyway, Paul's note writes, "Dear Ted, it is officially complete and fresh off the press. I wanted to share a copy of the Melbourne Portraits Project, a photographic ode, my first book. This project grew from a spark ignited during your zine workshop where The Street is My Studio was created. The insights gained from that experience have stayed with me, shaping every part of this book. The cover features a mosaic of all the portraits in the book, reflecting the creative spirit of the project. Inside, the Melbourne Portraits Project is organized into 12 chapters, each exploring a different aesthetic that captures the many facets of Melbourne's creative community. Taken over a 2-year period during the pandemic and between lockdowns, these photos transformed quiet streets and graffiti-lined alleyways into an unexpected studio. To complement the book, I've developed a companion website. Just click away at kissow.com. I'll put this in the show description below so you can check it out. This will feature behind-the-scenes stories, extra photos, and interviews with some of the people who brought this project to life. It's intended as a space to connect with other creatives and dive into the stories and inspiration behind each photo, opening up conversations that reach beyond Melbourne. May this book capture the creative energy that filled every moment behind the lens. It wouldn't be what it is without that initial spark, and I'm excited to finally share it with you. Sincerely, Paul." So Paul, not only is your work absolutely outstanding, but I think this is kind of what we all wanted to see this turn into. And I love that. I love the fact that you got your feet wet with this and you had a little bit of experimentation. You went ahead and got it printed. And a lot of that really led to making this a smoother process. And it's something that I've never really thought of until we worked together on this. And it's something I'd like to start doing in my own work, where you have something that's more of like a demo for something before you make the final, or something that's a sketch before you do the actual work. This is outstanding. I love the creative approach to this. Paul is a very creative individual, and he really thrives on this whole collaborating thing. I think it's what makes him a successful fashion photographer. The rapport he has with his models, his sense of color is wonderful. And I think that's another thing that I wanted to point out. And I pointed this out when we did the zine a couple months back. But I love the fact that a lot of the spreads, a lot of the groupings, it's very color conscious as well as subject conscious. Paul put an enormous amount of work in here, and he has a very wild creative spirit. And I think that that comes through in the final work. Paul, you should be very proud of this. This looks outstanding. So I will link up to everybody in the show description below, Instagram accounts. If there's a way to get the book, I will link that up as well. And if you guys have any questions, please drop them below. We don't have any workshops planned yet for this year. I am planning on doing several, and so stay tuned with these types of videos with Mail Time, and I will let you guys know if you want to participate in a zine workshop. You've seen the work that comes out. It's obviously awesome, and I want to thank everybody who sent stuff in. And anyway, if you guys got any comments, drop them below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, later.